It's always very good when you do this. Just that in the TV, usually it's Cheong Sam, then one leg in front, one leg behind. But this is not the case, okay? Okay, already you must take out spec. Okay, the first one is regarding AMS, antimicrobial stewardship. Remember just I told you about the use of antibiotics, right? The prescribers do not belong to IHH, okay? What are we doing to empower our infectious disease pharmacists, especially when doctors do not take the advice of our ID pharmacists? So I suppose this question is, they didn't, unfortunately, did not write down the name, but I'll take it that it probably the person who wrote this, thank you. I think the country you come from probably is Singapore and Malaysia. Because in our doctors, is there anything wrong with the mic? Okay, yeah. So I would say that if the doctors are employed or whether they are not employed, it doesn't matter. Okay. Usually I find that working with doctors is a combination of a few things. One is if you have certain things that you can forge a common ground, it's easier to work. Number two is that we empower them by giving them enablers, so it's easier for them to work together with us. Then how do we find the common ground? You find that a lot of people say that getting doctors to work is like herding cats. You know cats, right? Cats, they do their own thing, they lie down there. Then if you stroke them like that, they'll purr a bit, right? Very shiok. Then depending on their mood, they'll come to you. It's not like dogs, they come, then shake their tail, come and sit down there. It's very different. So they say working with doctors is like that. But actually it's not true. Okay, I've come across many doctors. And as long as we know what is important, and most of the time I find that this one works, we put the patient at the center. When we put the patient at the center, it's always very easy to find a common ground with our doctors on what will work, what will not work. And most doctors, they have a calling themselves, much like any one of us. There's a sense of what is right and what is wrong. And once we're able to find this common ground with the patient in the center, there's a lot of things that can be addressed. Likewise for AMR, antimicrobial resistance and antimicrobial stewardship. I believe that if we are able to find a common ground with them, talk to them why it is important, and sometimes some are easier to work with, some may require a little bit more convincing, that's fine. But if we soldier on, I'm sure we should be able to get this to work. I still remember when I first joined healthcare in 2002, some doctors are just so difficult. They will I just sit down in front of them, they'll scold me for 1 hour, I let them scold. Okay, never mind. Next week I go in again, they'll talk to me, this time no scolding, maybe nagging. Then after that, become half an hour. Then after that, become 10 minutes. Then finally, okay, what you want? I say, these are things. Okay, so these are things that we can get them to work. Okay, the other way is use peer pressure. Common ground also, right? Hey, this doctor is doing very good for patient, all this. And most of the time, doctors are the very high achievers. I'm sure doctors among you, all of you in the camera here, in front of the screen, you're a high achiever. You want to do what is good and what is right. So when we share all these results, I think people will know. And they know that this is something that maybe they may not say it up front, but they'll do it quietly behind the scene. So trust me, just soldier on. Okay, and if there's anything, go back to facts, go back to literature and all that. Okay, I find that it's also useful before we meet up with doctors, research on all the things and quote literature. This publication say that, BMJ say that, NEMJ say that. Then they'll say, this guy knows your work. So do your homework first. Okay, so there's something. Number two is enablers. How do we make it easy? If the moment we ask doctor, you have to put down all your patient care, take out a form, fill in and all that, that is going to create more resistance because that is not the course of practice. So enablers will have to be thought through in the sense that how do we make it easy for them to generate that compliance document or whichever that selection of, say, the antibodies much easier. For example, we need to have very good microbiology service to say that this is which particular class of bacteria and therefore what kind of appropriate range of antibiotics we have to use. So it requires everyone. It's not just pharmacists. It's also about lab, also about frontline staff, and more so support from the management. I think that's something that we can do together. So I think, thank you very much for your question. It's a very good question because it touches on a lot of things that are underlying behind the scenes. It's not just about one-to-one, I get the doctor to work, but also the entire support system that is behind that. Okay, so that's the first question. Second question, huh? Wow, this one, the word is very... yeah. Okay. I try to read because it is very, very sculptured, the word, very, very nice, but management measures to convey our values are felt and experienced to all staff at the ground, especially in locations other than Malaysia and Singapore, where IHH HQ are located. We do get all the information on LinkedIn, Yamper, etc., but still need to improve the feeling of belongingness for staff other than the country's senior management. So I suppose, if I paraphrase, is that we have a lot of communications going on. How do we actually cascade it down to the ground, to the unit? I think it's a very pertinent question. As I mentioned earlier, it's very easy for us to paint nice big picture. This is a framework. This is a thing we want to do. We have this communication program. And I agree with the feedback or the staff who wrote this. It must be felt in the heart. Do we really feel it? It's not just at the hospital level or at the unit level, but in the micro department level that you can feel it. Do you feel it every day? In, for example, the roll call every morning. Before we start the ward, before we start the shift, we brief everyone. Do we actually feel those kind of values? Number two, as leaders, okay, all of us are leaders here. You don't think that only CEOs are leaders. Okay, if you have staff reporting to you, you are a leader yourself. Do we walk the talk? If we say patients first, we want to empathize. Do we spend time talking to patients? Do we spend time listening to patients? I think people can feel it when all of us are doing it together. And it can be done. Okay, I'll share with you one experience where I first went to NUH in Singapore. NUH, for those of you who are not familiar, it's actually a tertiary hospital linked to the university. So they always say if you throw a stone, right, you hit the head of a professor. Because there are so many professors there, and professors are there, very high class, very professor, very esteemed. Okay, and every time I ask the staff, why do you do this? Because prof say this, and another guy, because prof say that. Okay, even in those areas, we are able. So when I first went there, people don't smile because everything is professor say this, that. Then every time feel that they are very high up because I'm actually belonging to a university hospital. I'm above everyone else. And nobody smiles. Okay? Over a period of 2 to 3 years, okay, I even have to stick sticker on the lift. Have you smiled at a colleague today? Have you smiled at a patient today? Okay? This kind of extent. Because people don't feel it. We can say that we embrace the value of empathy, compassion, communication, all this. But if people don't feel it, it doesn't matter. So over a consistent period of 2 to 3 years, finally, by the time I left NUH in 2016, everywhere we walk, at least people are smiling to one another, which is a big change from the cold, hard place. So it all starts with the micro units. At the roll call level, do we do that? Okay. At the department meetings, do we do that? Okay. And as I shared just now, very easy to do. Every day we just ask ourselves before we sleep, have I done anything that make the work of one of my colleagues easier? If we can do that, I think every one of them do that, the multiplier effect is actually very powerful. There's a video called Pay Forward, and it's essentially about this. Okay, and in many ways it's true. We actually reap the fruits of the seed we sow. Right? So if we want the organization to be good, we feel it ourselves. It's all start not with like that. 3 fingers point at me, 1 finger point at you. Okay, so it's always like that. We always start with ourselves. What can we do to make the work of our colleague easier today? Okay, next area. Okay. Well, this is a handwritten, which is quite good. So it means it's fresh. Fresh from the oven. Okay. Next question. With the increased cost of living. Where are you laugh? Yeah, I know it's increased cost of living. And it's very true. Like in Malaysia and Singapore. In Malaysia, before COVID, one bowl of bak chor mee cost $3.50. Now it costs $5. So it's everywhere, okay? In Turkey, we have hyperinflation, also very expensive. Okay, so it's serious, huh? With the increased cost of living, the amount of staff bonding is still... Why? I think you have the same how to connect cost of living and finish first, okay. The amount of staff bonding is still at the same rate of, okay, I know what I mean already. They say that the funding that we give for staff bonding, it still remains at $50 per staff per year. Now we see the connection already, yeah? Okay. $50 per staff per year in the past, now with inflation, may mean less now, okay? Okay. Which only cover barely a session in that year. Can this matter be looked into further? I would say that always can. It can actually, a lot of it also depends on how we make use of the $50 or whichever it is, right? I mean, I may increase to $100, but if the underlying dynamic is no good, even if I throw a lunch, a department lunch, at a 5-star hotel, when you eat, does it taste good? Not so good, right? So I think at the end of the day, it's still the dynamics. Okay, if $50 is not enough, I think can always discuss with the country CEOs how that can be improved. Okay, for example, I'm looking forward to this. MOD is going to hold a sports day in June. Sports day is okay, you play sports and all that. I don't know whether they fit into $50 per person, but it's something that brings camaraderie together. And while we fight each other, mind you, it's not those kind of play kind of sports day. Okay, last time with the sports day in Malaysia, we have 3 ambulances. Because people broke their leg, broke their arms, and it's so competitive. Okay, so it's a very serious play. But the bonding is so strong. People cheer for one another. Even the losing team will cheer for the winning team at the prize presentations. I think these are the kind of spirit we want. Okay, so I think, yes, dollar can be reviewed, but more importantly, how we use that $50 or $60 much more effectively. I think that's much more important. Okay, so definitely I think this is a country, I'll pass to the country CEO to look into that. $50 in, I suppose $50 means Singapore, right? Because the other one is ringgit, rupee, and all that. Okay. Okay, so that's one. Okay. Before that, anyone want to ask question on the ground first? Don't have, I continue, Continue, Okay, next one. Why are we still having headcount freeze when the group is doing well? Okay, using contract staff instead of hiring full headcount replacement. Okay, so it really depends on where we are. Okay, if we are talking about the ground, okay, in areas we are short, nurses, allied health. I've always tell the country CEOs, it's so hard to get nurses. Recruit in advance. For example, I know that this quarter, I'm going to have 100 nurses leaving. It's come and go, right? Every year we have about 10%. Then I recruit 200. Why do I recruit 100? Because we plan in advance. Right? Because by the time you recruit, the feedback loop and the lead time that you get, this 100 staff will be a bit late. So let's go more aggressive with that. But of course, when it comes to corporate costs, then we have to be more careful. Because at the end of the day, we also want to make sure that the corporate cost is actually put to good use. Okay, I always told and shared with my colleagues in the corporate, because I work from both the ground and the corporate, is that at the corporate, the question I ask myself is, have I done the work today that makes the work of country CEOs easier, that make the work of our nurses, our doctors easier? So it's the same question. I think if we are able to answer that, whether it's full headcount or whether it is a replacement or whether it's a contract staff and all that, I think those are things which we can actually look into. And whether it's a permanent staff or contract staff, I would say it also depends on whether the problem I'm trying to solve will be over by the time I solve it. Because maybe a lot of problems, once I solve this, right, the work will come down. Then if I have someone on long-term employment, it's not just about having the staff now. But also if I recruit someone, I am responsible for the career of that someone. I don't want to have a someday where after 1 year, 2 years after hiring the person, I have to tell them, sorry, so and so. Because now the work has come down, I have to let you go. That's not very nice, right? I think that's where we are coming from. So definitely the discipline of controlling costs and all that, we have to be there. But if there's a case to put up to hire staff, either replacement or have a contract, I think it's the duty of us as supervisor to have the moral courage to put it up, even though there are hoops to go through. The hoops are there for more for oversight and control, but doesn't mean that it cannot be done. So it's really whether we as supervisor are prepared to put up the case and to actually get the staff in. But for the ground, I don't see any issue. I think it's the reverse. We want to get more staff, but the rate of recruitment is not fast enough. Okay, so that is the issues that we are grappling with. So I think those are problems which I think I would say more administrative. I think we can solve that. Okay, next area. Let me look at time. 8 minutes, still have time for 2 more questions or 3 more questions. Wow, okay, this one is interesting. I didn't know that. It says that the government hospitals have implemented birthday leave for all staff this year. Is that true? Oh, okay. Okay. Is there any possibility of this incentive to be implemented in IHH in future years to remain competitive? Okay. This one, I think, okay, thank you for the, I'll ask Angela to study it. Okay. I'll ask, essentially, I think if it is something which will make the day and will be effective, we are open to that. But bear in mind, at the end of the day, it's always a balance of how much we actually want to celebrate this and how much we want to save for the company. It's always and I think that if it is a worthwhile thing and to remain competitive, we should do it. But I'm also mindful that governments and governments are different. Okay, I suppose because it's handwritten, I suppose it's from one of the live audience from Singapore, and Singapore's government super rich. Okay, if you talk about say maybe government in another country, maybe struggling a bit. Okay, but if we do something, we'll make sure that at least it's fair to staff across the way. Probably I'll adopt more a country-based approach according to a country, because each country's circumstances are different also. Okay, so I think it will be a country-based, country-specific kind of solution. Okay, let me see, are there any questions from the...
yes, Joe, we have a very active audience.
From the people who dialed in?
Yes, correct. So
this one?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, sorry, I missed out your questions. Okay, let me read out. Okay, this is written by Comstar. Okay. On 19th of April 2023, so quite recent, there was an article in Straits Times, that abusive patients face discharge from hospital. Face discharge, okay. Is IHH implementing any measures to protect staff known from physical and verbal abuse? Okay, we all know that sometimes we do face this. Even I myself face this. Okay, whether are there any things that we're doing to protect? I think definitely there is. Okay, we have helpline for people who are abused. We also have care buddies. And more importantly, I think it's all the supervisors. When we see that there's an abusive patient or maybe an abrasive doctor, do we stand up in front of the staff and defend the staff? I think that is very important. And to the staff, it matters a lot. Whether they manage to protect the staff or not, the very act that the supervisors step forward to protect the staff, that's actually important. And sometimes we also look at ways in which we can do that more cleverly. In the height of H1N1, as a CEO of the hospital, I have to go and control crowd because it happens so fast and we have no time to get extra security guard. So you know how short I am, I have a very small size. I went in front, I tell someone, please queue up. And the guy want to whack me. Okay, because he is so tall and so short. And people are angry because we ask them to queue, do temperature screening, do declaration and all that. But I was very appreciative because one of my colleagues was an ex-commando. He saw that, he came and bought, stand from me. He's tall, big, handsome, and stuff. So I think all this help. So whenever we see that there are abusive patients and all that, one of the common way for all of you on the ground, gather together. Numbers do make a difference. Okay, once you gather together, you don't have to be abusive, we just stand together with each other. It makes a lot of difference. Okay, so that is actually on the ground, how we react. But there are also systems in place. And if any of these do raise, don't let the problem actually go and brew. And one of the key things is that if we do wrong to the patients, we come clean, we acknowledge, we apologize, and we make good. But if we are right and our staff are abused, Okay, this one, you hear it from me, and that's also the commitment of the company. We go all the way. Even if we have to go to the extent of taking the abuser to court, we will do that. Okay, so that's the assurance that we give to all the staff in all the countries that we operate. We do not tolerate this thing. Okay, so that's the assurance that you have. Okay, another question. Okay. For hospitals, air conditioning are set so low, it's freezing. Even in public area, not just OT. Yeah, I agree. Right. And that is especially so in many of our, I don't know why. Maybe because it's central control or what. And I find that it also varies from country to country. Okay, so it's this. It also varies from country to country. Like when I first went to Malaysia in 2017, I find that most of even the offices are very cold. 18 degrees. Now to up to 25 degrees. Okay, so I think it's something that we should look in. I'm sure that as we focus on care for good planet side, right, we should be able to actually be more active on that. And if you see that certain rooms are not used and all that, if you can switch off the FCU, switch off the FCU. I think that helps a lot. And we really don't have to be so cold. It doesn't make sense to be so cold, and then we have to put on layers and layers of jacket. It doesn't make sense. Right? You can see a lot in the hospitals. Okay, even in common areas, people are wearing jacket because they are cold, right? So I think those are areas that we can actually work on. Offices is the same thing. Okay, offices sometimes cannot control because if we are renting an office, it's up to the building management, but we can always feedback to them. Okay? Okay, 2 more minutes, so one more question. Oh, this one a lot of words, huh? Okay, nice to see increased incentives in our drive to recruit more nurses and other staff. Okay, thank you, you acknowledge that. Thank you very much. Okay, however, security is not included despite the fact that security, apart from its work obligations, are also heavily and actively involved in nursing and other departments' drills and projects. Seems like security is not appreciated, but its contributions is taken for granted. Okay, I must say here that healthcare is a team sport. Whether you are directly in charge of patients, or whether you're security, you're a porter, or even engineers, you all play a very important part. Okay, number 2, whether you are hospital employed staff, or whether you are outsourced staff. Many of these areas, including security, we do outsource to companies because they can provide better training and also career development and all that. Once you wear the badge, okay, of course you follow the hospital rules and all that, but at the same time you are part of the team. Doesn't mean that because you're employed by other companies you're not. So I don't know whether the one who wrote this, our colleague here, whether you are employed by the hospital itself or whether you're employed by an outsourced partner. If you find that the pay is not competitive and all that, I think we'll take the feedback on. But let me share with you the process. Every year, we do benchmarking. Okay, benchmarking to see whether our various professional groups, our various support staff and all this, are we competitive and up to market? Okay, so all these things we review year to year. Doesn't mean that we single out any group less important, therefore we don't prioritize the thing. Every time when we do this, it's always a broad base and we make sure that we actually balance it out. Okay, so be assured that it's not because you are any less important because you're doing security. In fact, you are very important. If someone wants to whack me, who do I go to? I call you for help, right? So I think those are very important that we will take care of. Okay, so how long now is another 10 minutes, is it? Oh, okay, then I continue. If you just think that I speak too much, just let me know. We go on to the next section. Okay. Okay, this one is straightforward. Our company should offer courses like Excel and PowerPoint. Okay, I don't know the details of the exact offerings of the different countries. Every country in our HR, we have what we call HR Development Department. I'm sure there's a budget that we have for development and training. Typically, it's about 1 to 2% of the payroll. Okay, and we can use this fund to train people. If there's a need for these courses and all that, speak to the HR director whether we can actually organize this if there are enough people. Even if it's not, don't feel shy to ask. Just let the supervisor know why it's important for you to attend this course and just put out a request. I'm sure this can be done quite easily. Okay, so I think this one is quite easily addressed and solved. Next area. As part of sustainability and environment friendly, are we looking into initiatives to reduce utilization of papers or zero paper in hospitals? Okay, just now I thank you for your questions. I think I'm also very glad that you have paid attention, because in the slides, I only put two things, right? Energy and plastics. Okay, but yes, if we can reduce paper, by all means, do so. Like for example, recently in corporate HQ, we move on to our new offices. We actually reduced the number of printers by quite a lot, and also reduce the storage for papers. I think these are little things that we can do. In the hospital setting, how do we reduce that? I think progressively we are trying to make it paperless, okay, by making things electronic. Consent form. We talk about, say, all the nursing forms when we have EMR, all the problem lists that doctors have, or all the notes and all that. We try to make it electronic. I think it's also good also because with that, then there's continuity. With paper, sometimes it's lost or it may be illegible. Okay, definitely, if in your respective area, you can use less, by all means, do so that it's easier for us to... We don't have to wait for whether company is doing this, then I do it. Okay, if you really feel passionate, can always start a movement within your micro area or departments that you work in, and then we can get this started. Okay, definitely, I think paper is equally bad because you have to cut down a lot of trees. And there are also differences between paper. Recycled paper and what they call made from fresh virgin pulp or something like that. So those are the new trees are being cut down just to produce. I think there are also choices that we can choose. Definitely, a lot of the papers that we can save, we should by all means save that as much as possible. Okay. Is JCI in Singapore cancelled officially? I think it's a question of Singapore, but we also have audience from around the world. So I address this as a whole. Okay. When we talk about going for JCI, what is the purpose? The purpose is actually for us to have an assurance system, to know that we have the processes, we have the systems in place to make sure that everything that we do for our patients is safe. And we actually have certain standards that we can achieve for patients. And that's the key thing. Okay. So in some of our countries, we adopt national standards. Like in India, we have the Indian standards that we adopt. In Hong Kong, we follow the Australian standards. Likewise, in all the jurisdictions, if there are national standards we follow, on top of that, something like JCI, we may also have it for some hospitals. So, for example, in Singapore, all the hospitals are currently on JCI. In Malaysia, the Tier 1 hospitals are on JCI, and so on and so forth. So, to me, if you ask me, is JCI the key thing that we're going for? To me, it is not. JCI is a means to an end. And what is the end? The end is safe and effective patient care. That is more important. So in the IHH context, for those of you who are dialing from overseas, what the Singapore government has done is that they have taken all the elements of the JCI standards and put it into the new licensing requirements. Okay, so now the licensing that is done in Singapore is actually by service level, and all the things, international patient safety goals and all the medication management, all this, are actually factored into the licensing itself. Then we ask ourselves the question, okay, if we can pass the licensing every time, okay, we have a system to do that, then do I still want JCI? Okay, one of the things that I always learn as a ground operator is that sometimes having no system is bad because there's no assurance. Having too much system, also bad. Why? Because we all die from audit fatigue. Every day auditor, every day surveyor. Who will not go crazy, right? I will go crazy myself, right? So I think that is very important. So with this stringent standard for the Singapore licensing system. We discussed internally and also with our advisory committee, later I'll share with you. We decided that there's no point for Singapore to go through Singapore licensing and then JCI. So we just go straight for Singapore licensing because that is comprehensive enough to cover everything. Is it the case in other countries? You all like it, right? So it's official. Okay. It's official. Nobody. Okay. So for those of you in the other countries, if you have, say, your MSQH in Malaysia and you see your GCI, continue with that until one day where we can streamline. And this one we actually have, at the board level, we have what we call the ICGAC. Sounds a lot of name, right? International Clinical Advisory Committee. Okay, something like that. Okay, if you ask me, I also, when it's so long, sometimes it's a problem, right? But essentially what it means is that we have a group of experts from around the world to advise us from a clinical point of view what is good and what is not. And we have actually discussed this with the chairman of the ICGAC, whether he will support us not having JCI in Singapore. And he is fully supportive. And mind you, the chairman is Tan Sri Abu Bakar. He used to be the Director General of Healthcare Services in Malaysia. He's very experienced and he knows healthcare system inside out. And he supports that we actually don't do that in Singapore. So that's something, another assurance that we are doing the right things. So I think that's the way we are going for Singapore. Okay, and whether you are on Singapore licensing or in other countries, NABH, Australian standards, MSQH, the key thing, remember, patients come first. Okay, we must always make sure that we have the system in place to assure that every patient comes to our system. It's our duty of care, and we have the system and the processes to make sure that they are safe and the care is good and effective. So that's the whole spirit behind it. Again, as I said, all these strokes and all that, in lecture fighting, it doesn't quite apply. You don't go by textbook, right? You go by intent, and we go by objectives. Okay, so that's the way we go. Okay, so off for Singapore. Next area. 2 minutes. This one good. Finally, it's not from Singapore. As far as India is concerned, how organization is looking for cost-effective treatment to patient, may it... I read out the question, then I try to figure out what the question is. Okay, as far as India is concerned, how organization is looking for cost-effective treatment to patient, may it be minor or major disease. So that's what I wrote. But sorry, I don't quite understand your question. But I'll try to say that, are you asking about... maybe I give this question. Maybe you can email us and then we can answer your question. Because I don't know what the question, or is that just a comment that's being made? Okay, next question. 1 minute, 39 seconds.
Hi, Joe. We have a special request from the audience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this person's very shy.
Last question already, yeah?
Person's very shy.
Oh, very shy. Okay. Wow, okay. It's from PEH, I suppose it's Parkway East Hospital, and it's very neatly typed out. So, wow, not bad. Okay. So it's that proposed places of interest or activities to be added in QWL. Angela, what is QWL? Oh, Quality Work Life. Okay, so Singapore has an initiative called Quality Work Life. And I suppose under that, there are places of interest that the staff can go to with some subsidy or some support. So there is a very interesting list that they give me. Birds of Paradise. Okay, this is a new bird park that we have, a world-renowned bird park in that Singapore just set up. QSS, that is the Universal Studio, where you can have the Galactica roller coaster and all that. Okay, Sea Aquarium, Garden by the Bay, Nature Walk. Nature Walk free, lah. You can go yourself. You don't have to ask, it's free. Okay. Sentosa's rides, for example, Luge, iFly cable car, okay, that one. Staff bowling, yes. Yoga, Zumba, Pilates. Why not? I think this one I'll pass on to Dr. Prem is probably dialing in from Australia. So Prem, you see this, huh? I'll pass this to you. Okay? Okay, so that brings us to the end of the Q&A. Okay, and I really like to thank all of you for your response. I will definitely want to hear more from all of you who are dialing in. Unfortunately, I think I only received one question. Right? So I think do keep the questions coming. Town hall is just one of the engagement sessions. But I believe engagement has been continuous. So if you have any feedback and all that, Anurag in India, for example, to Kenneth in Hong Kong, and so on, and Francois in Malaysia, I'm sure throughout the country, town hall, you can raise a lot of all these issues. And believe me, at the end of the day, how we are able to succeed as an organization is not just about how well the organization is doing. It's all about you and me, how we can make it work. Okay, so let's work together on this. Okay? So I quickly sum up. I started with care for good, right? Okay, so this is just a snapshot of how well or how we have been doing. So I usually put this at the last. When I first went to MOD, I have a town hall, and the town hall with the doctors say 10 slides. 8 slides to talk about financials. Only 2 slides talk about patients, none about staff. So I threw that away. So likewise for this town hall, I put financials at the last. Okay, so you look at how well we are doing financially, you can see that we are very stable. Even with COVID, we are doing well. And just now, as I shared with you, Ashok Pandit reminded me to remind all of you that we have done well for first quarter. How well? I cannot tell you because it's market sensitive. We announce it next week at the results announcement. Okay? And at the same time, we're also pursuing all the growth opportunities. We're actually trying to grow organically in the areas that we have, and also looking for acquisitions, especially in countries where markets are consolidating or where there are opportunities for us to grow through brownfield as well as M&A. And at the same time, we're actually reorganizing the lab so that it can be more effective, and we're also starting our digital transformation. Having said all this, I must say that much as we have done well in the past year, okay, there are also some challenges ahead. Okay, where is that? Okay. We all know that inflation, just now somebody mentioned inflation, right? It's again coming to hit us. Okay. In a lot of times, in private sector, we say that we pass on as much of the inflation to the patients. It's not like government. Government sometimes will absorb it, right? But bear in mind that there's only a limit on how far we can do that. At some point, private healthcare may become so unaffordable that we cannot do that. So inflation is still a real challenge. So the real test for all of us is how can we make care more effective with the same resources or with less resources? Can we deliver better care for patients? I think that's something which we'll continue to work on. And I really look forward to working with all of you to make this happen through value-driven outcome, through making sure that we achieve better synergies and so on. Number 2, business competition. How do we continue to innovate? And in many countries, I would say that innovation is actually very much ongoing. In India, we have seen development of new business models where people go straight to, say, labs to order lab tests. That's not happening in Singapore, Malaysia, and so on. But it may happen in the future. You look at, say, for example, in terms of digital platforms, are we there yet? Probably with the exception of Acibadem, the rest of the country are still playing a catch-up game. In Singapore, it's also quite advanced, but the government is even more advanced, okay, because government is very, very rich. Okay, so they spend a lot of money. Okay, but we have to actually be much more effective in the way we spend. Okay, likewise, Malaysia will be ahead of all competitors. So different countries have different challenges, but the key thing is that we must continue to innovate. Okay, and make sure that we are not happy where we are. We have done well, but tomorrow will always be better. Okay, last but not least, labor shortages. It concerns many of you on the ground. This is something that we continue to work on, and we actually spare no efforts to make sure that we fill out the staff. So looking forward, while there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of optimism as well. Why do I say that? I think because we have strong foundations, and more importantly, from what we have experienced together in the last 3 years, 2020 to 2022, through COVID, through crisis, we're actually ahead of the competition. We walk through this together. So I actually move forward in 2023, 2024 with a lot more confidence because I know that we can depend on each other, okay, if we hold on together. Okay, so on this note, I will say that that will bring me to the end of my presentation. Okay, we just celebrated International Nurses Day last Friday, right? So today this town hall will be different. Okay, and also because we also don't want to every time do the same old stuff, didactic briefing. So we have a special item prepared for our nurses and all of you here, whether you are in the crowd or on the computer screen. And before we start, can I invite the hotel crew to prepare the stage first? Okay? So this is an item we want to dedicate to all of you. And I believe that it's the same spirit that I shared. No matter how much difficult road ahead is, if we can actually work together, nothing will actually impede us. So that is the message that we want to have here. So music, please. If you feel like singing, come on stage as well, okay? Don't lose your way with each passing day. You've come so far, don't throw it away.
Live believing, dreams are weaving, wonders are waiting to start.
Live your story, faith, hope and glory, hold on the truth in your
Come on, light up your headphones.
If we hold on together, I know our dreams will never die. Dreams see us through to forever. When clouds roll by, for you and I.
Snows in the wind, like that. Stay out the star, hold on to the end.
Valley, mountain, there is a fountain, washes our tears all away.
Words are swaying, someone is praying, please let us hope to stay.
Come on, together.
If we hold on together, I know our dreams will never die. Dreams see us through to forever. When clouds roll by, for you and I. When we are out there in the dark, we'll dream about the sun. In the dark, we'll feel the light warm our hearts, everyone. If we hold on together, I know our dreams will never die. Dreams see us through to forever. As high as souls can fly, the for you and
Woohoo! Give it up for Joe and our nurses.
Happy Nurses Day.
This is even better than a Blackpink concert, yo. For those who are joining us online, we have officially come to the end of our town hall. Thank you so much and have a great day ahead. And do fill up our QR survey. And for those who are here in the audience, please do not leave because we are going to take a group photo together. All right? Thank you very much for attending the town hall. Thank you.